Israeli police confirm the president is expected to visit Israel on Monday. The Israeli military says the U.S. brokered ceasefire in Gaza is now in effect. Thousands of displaced Palestinians are now making the trek north to Gaza City as the Israeli military pulls out from agreed upon areas. Israeli vehicles, military vehicles, are on the move, apparently pulling back from some areas. This officially starts the 72-hour clock for Hamas to release the hostages. 47 who were kidnapped in the October 7th, 2023 attacks are still in Gaza. At least 20 are still believed to be alive. In an address to the nation today, to Israel today, the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu implied for the first time that not all the remains of the deceased hostages will return. Let's get right to CNN's Jeremy Diamond with the latest from Tel Aviv, where I know this nation, the entire nation, watching all these events so closely. Jeremy.
Absolutely, and we are continuing to see people flock here to Hostage Square in order to, celebrate this moment together of all of these hostages who will be now returning within the next 72 hours. We know that that timeline has now started because the Israeli military confirmed at noon today that they had completed their withdrawal from parts of Gaza. And once they completed that, that means that a ceasefire, according to them, is officially in effect, and also that Hamas now has 72 hours to return the hostages, which could put the return of the hostages as late as, but perhaps sooner than, Monday at noon. And that also suggests that President Trump's visit on Monday will coincide quite shortly thereafter or right before the release of those hostages. And perhaps we will see President Trump actually being able to greet some of those hostages. We know, of course, that here in Hostage Square yesterday we saw a lot of American flags in the air, a lot of people thanking and crediting President Trump directly for his role in securing this agreement that is not only going to secure the release of all of the hostages, but according to the president and the mediators, is also ending the war in Gaza once and for all. We are already beginning to see in Gaza how people are reacting to this, not only the celebrations, but as you mentioned, the thousands of people who are beginning to move along Al-Rashid Street, that coastal road in Gaza, to head back to Gaza City. Of course, before this agreement, we saw hundreds of thousands of people who were forced to be displaced from Gaza City as a result of that Israeli military offensive, and now many of them are starting to return home. But so many more pieces to the puzzle remain in the days ahead. The Prime Minister today suggesting for the first time that some of the bodies of those deceased hostages may not be returned immediately alongside the 20 living hostages. The International Committee of the Red Cross have said that they will be assisting in helping to locate and ultimately recover the bodies of hostages that may be under the rubble in parts of the Gaza Strip. And then, of course, there are the next steps to get beyond this first phase of this agreement and actually lead to the kind of final resolution to this 2-year-long war in Gaza. Intense negotiations still happening with Jared Kushner, President Trump's son-in-law, and Steve Witkoff, President Trump's special envoy, continuing to meet with the Israeli Prime Minister, with the Israeli government in order to queue up those next steps. John?
Yeah, every day almost a new milestone here. Jeremy Diamond for us in Tel Aviv this morning. Jeremy, thank you very much.
Yeah, reaction to the ceasefire deal is pouring in from all around the world. The Latin Patriarch of Jerusalem questions what will happen next with Gaza reduced to rubble after 2 years of war. Here's what he told CNN's Aaron Burnett earlier.
I don't have the words about this. All the words cannot represent really what has been for the population of Gaza this period, and also the horror of the deaths, that people and so on is a crime, of course. I think crime, a horrific crime, unacceptable and morally unjustifiable. All what we can use, our expression, are not able to anyway to express properly the level of suffering, pain, and also anger within the population. We don't know what is going to happen after the war, if the war will really finish. And everything has to be rebuilt anew. All the infrastructures, housing, houses, schools. Don't forget, this is the third year without schools. So how to talk about future of the children if they, for 3 years without school, hospitals, you said water, everything has to be rebuilt anew. For the first period, they will be totally dependent from the humanitarian support from abroad, from the international society or any other institutions. And the rebuilding will take years.
All right, joining me live from Gaza is Tess Ingram, spokesperson for UNICEF, the United Nations Children's Fund. Thank you so much for being here with us. Really appreciate it. So just to start off, if you could, I mean, I know there were still strikes early this morning. So things are still tenuous, but describe to me the feeling on the ground there now that apparently there is this ceasefire that's been agreed to.
Yeah, Kim, when the news broke yesterday, there was huge celebration in Gaza, hope that this conflict was over. But then for many people, they returned to the desperation of just trying to survive, existing in the wasteland that is the Gaza Strip, trying to get food and water, find shelter. That reality persists for people. So while they're cautiously optimistic, they are enduring suffering, and they are, of course, wary about whether this will fully come into place and whether it will be sustained. Because as you said, there were reportedly attacks in Khan Yunis and in Gaza City this morning. And we know that when there are attacks in the Gaza Strip, that they kill and injure children.
All right. So the efforts to try to alleviate some of that suffering that you're talking about, assuming the ceasefire does hold, when do you think UNICEF teams will actually be able to get back into Gaza and start delivering that much needed aid?
Well, we've never left Gaza. We've been here the whole time delivering aid. But our hope is that this ceasefire will allow us to scale up. That's the goal here, because there have been, of course, a near complete blockade that has stopped us from bringing in enough aid. So we need to see all available crossings into the Gaza Strip open so that we can get hundreds of trucks worth of aid in every day. UNICEF has more than 1,300 trucks pre-positioned outside the Gaza Strip, ready to come in with nutrition supplies, medical supplies, other life-saving care for kids. So we hope that the ceasefire will come into force today and that we will see that scaling up of aid in the coming days.
You talked about some of the things on that you're hoping to deliver. I mean, what is at the very top of your list, and what do you and your team sort of need to tackle first?
Nutrition is at the very top of our list. Of course, a famine has been confirmed in Gaza City. So we're really trying to bring in more nutrition supplies and make sure that they get to the children and the families who so desperately need them wherever they are. We're also really intent on making sure that we can repair water systems, because water, of course, goes hand in hand with food. So we're bringing in equipment to provide safe drinking water for people. We're also bringing in shelter because so many homes have been destroyed here. It's coming into winter. So tarpaulins or tents are really necessary. They're the top three on our list. But of course, the needs are immense after 2 years of atrocities. So there's also education supplies, mental health kits, and a number of other life-saving pieces of aid coming into Gaza with UNICEF.
Yeah, absolutely. We've been hearing that sort of aid trucks that you were talking about that are needed to surge aid are waiting just miles from Gaza for months. I mean, if things do open up, how quickly can that be sort of mobilized and get those supplies to the families who need them the most?
That's the million-dollar question, Kim, because as you say, we've been waiting months to do this. The trucks are pre-positioned in various points around the Gaza Strip, ready to come in. The question on how fast this can surge really depends on when and if crossings into the Gaza Strip open, and then how those crossings operate. We need the bureaucratic impediments that have prevented us from bringing in large volumes of aid to be lifted so that we can really scale up 5 times more to bring in the aid that people need now. There's 2 million people, half of whom are children. So this has to happen fast. And we saw that it's possible in the last ceasefire in February. So our hope is that that can be repeated again starting tomorrow.
Yeah. So there's one thing getting the aid into Gaza and another sort of getting it to the people who need it most, because we have to obviously make sure it doesn't get stolen or siphoned away. I mean, there's been a lot of back and forth about who's responsible for some of those problems once the aid does get into Gaza. From your perspective, working with UNICEF, so what needs to happen differently this time to make sure all of that food, medicine, supplies actually reach children and their families?
We know that when the volume of aid increases, the desperation decreases. Basic economics. So if we see the volume of trucks go up, we'll see the looting go down. And we are already seeing that this week with a slight improvement in the aid coming in. So that's critical. We've got to get the volume up. And then we need to make sure that community distributions happen and household distributions. That's what UNICEF does. We bring aid to women and children in their places of refuge. We take it from our trucks and put it directly into their hands. And that's how we know that it's getting to the people who need it. Winter clothes, nutrition supplies, and other materials that they need.
Yeah. We'll leave it there. Really appreciate it. A huge task ahead of you. Tess Ingram in Gaza. Thank you so much.